Uh, what I have tried to do is identify some top 3 tips for cultivating new donors. And this is really based on the experience of project leaders who have been on our platform for months and years. And these 3 tips it sounds very simple. The first tip is know your supporters and provide value to them. The second is create a giving mindset. And third is about strengthening your brand. And somehow strengthening your brand often comes in from the point of view of PR or marketing, but it's really important for also acquiring new donors. And we'll touch upon this one by one as we move along. So to begin with, knowing your supporters or knowing your donors, the first thing we need to do is do a network map. Network map, network mapping is key to engaging your donors. When we think about our networks, we often think about the professional networks that we are looking at. We often think about the conferences we attend, and we think about, how am I going to do networking? But our network is really our family, our friends, uh, our neighbors, community leaders, previous donors, our colleagues, and through them we know a lot of people who could actually donate to the causes that we work on. So again, I think in the chat room earlier, we had one discussion where, I was sharing an example of a project leader on global giving who has said, our cause is not attractive enough. People don't want to give to it. But then we are also saying, are we speaking to the right people? We may be asking somebody who is interested in working with children to give for a charity that works for benefiting animals in some way, and they may not be our right audience. So identifying who is within our network and what will convince them to support our projects is really, really important. Within our network, again, the people that we just identified earlier, what can they give us? They can give us cash. Cash, are they able to provide financial support for your organization? They can possibly give time. Can they volunteer? Offer time to help your team complete goals. So again, think about, can they be fundraising volunteers as well, in addition to being program volunteers? And they can also have contacts. They may not have the cash, they may not have the time to volunteer, but they may have the contacts. They may be part of large networks, they may be influential people, or they may be able to reach out to other organizations on your behalf. So the people within your network, again, can contribute in 3 very, very obvious ways. What are these people within your network looking for? And again, how do we connect? We need to understand, do they care deeply for our cause and for our organization? Do they want to be involved? And there is a bit of time that we need to spend with each one on an individual basis, but also look at a group of people and try and gauge this. And this can be done through events that are conducted offline. This may be done because somebody on your team has a much better understanding, has worked with them in the past, and knows what really drives them. And that's how you may not need to have separate individual events, but that person may be able, within your team, may be able to identify really what this particular individual, is passionate about, what do they care about, and do they really understand what you as an organization does. The second thing is influence. Are they well respected in your sector? Do they have well regarded contact? So again, you may come across people who are really interested and passionate about what you do, and are well respected within the sectors that they work in, and they may actually be able to influence others to at least look at the website, at least look at your fundraising campaign and make a decision whether they want to give or not. But they are in that influential position. Other people in the network may have some expertise. Do they have important skills that they can provide your organization? So these skills, again, could be something that you can use within the program. It could be something that you could use within communications that your organization does, or it could be fundraising as well. So there's a lot that people within your network can offer. It's good to think about who supports you now, who is giving to your organization now, and understand the patterns that lie behind that. What makes them give, what sort of interaction you have had with them that has influenced them to give. Um, and again, I would say that your best advocates and supporters are the ones that already exist. Acquiring new donors is more difficult than retaining the existing ones. So trying to understand why your current donors or current supporters support you is really, really important when we think about a strategy for fundraising. Who could support you? And again, so we often try, when we are thinking about, okay, who our current donors are, that also gives us an idea of who our potential donors could be, who we may not be reaching out at this stage. And these individuals are really your opportunity to grow your network, but also it's important that we first engage them, and the first point of engagement should not necessarily be an ask. It may be that you want to involve them in one of the activities. You want to tell them a story or a successful initiative that your organization has done without the ask. The first, if you're interacting with somebody on one-on-one basis, and the first thing you do is ask, that may put some people off. So it's really important that we engage your supporters first before making that ask. And there are different ways of engaging, and we could talk about, I'll give some examples later on as well, different ways. One of our project leaders, which is Marshall Bailey, he is the CEO of Leadership Initiatives and has been a guest speaker on one of our online fundraising academy sessions. And he says creating a donor network is not just a one-time goal. It is an ongoing opportunity for you and your organization to create a dedicated and motivated base. So one of the examples that he shared of how they do this within the organization is on a monthly basis when they have their monthly team meetings, 15-20 minutes is dedicated to talking about networks, and not just with the fundraising team, but actually with the program team and with communication and whoever is part of the organization. Just spending that 15 minutes, have you come across anybody who may be relevant, who may want to know more about the organization, who may want to know more about the work we do, who may want to give a really, really small amount, but then later on could turn into a big donation. So that sort of monthly, just an ongoing activity with your team is really, really important to build this network. Here's just an example of a network tracker. And I mean, these are really people within our own organization, but this is to give you an idea. And your team can start almost like using a tool like Google Spreadsheets or something. The team can start populating this information as they meet people, as they meet and interact with current and new donors of, what is the best way to contact? What sort of supporters could they be or they are? Is there a goal that your team has for influencing this particular individual? What is the next task to do? Has that been done? Has that goal been reached? So this is one way you could actually track your network. And again, I would say that, and this is connecting to what Jasmine was saying in her session, was it's really important that the goals over here, the year-end goal, are very, very tangible. And also it's important that the CEO of the organization or the executive director is not the only person doing the networking externally. And it's really important that the whole team should be able to add to this, at least in providing the details and giving the insights on what's the best way to contact them and what this person might be interested in. Because your network, even just within the organization, is really, really, really powerful and often underutilized, I would say. Right. Thank you, Laura. By the way, I am using Jasmine's laptop now because that's the solution we came up with. So hopefully you're able to hear me better. I thought that exercise went well, so look forward to your feedback afterwards as well. The tool that I just shared, or the tool that I shared, is also available on our website, and here's the link for it, and we will be sharing this link with you after as well. So moving forward, let's go on to creating a giving mindset. And in this, we will talk about what it sort of connects to what Jas was saying earlier. Thinking about not just making the ask, but also thinking a bit long term of what is going to make donors want to give to you over a long period, and what do they expect in return from you as well. So there's a few points that we thought were really important, and it sort of resonates with what Jasmine was saying earlier. And they are donors are people too. We all seek meaning through our actions. So help donors make a meaningful connection between themselves and your work. So it's not just about them giving £10 or £20 to your organization and you sending them a generic thank you note. Think about, is there a way to customize that thank you note? Is there a way that you could really help them understand, not just uh, correspond with them over the donors sort of donation cycles, but can you give them an update, which is not bombarding them with emails, but is there another way of giving them an update? It could be through not an email, but through your social media campaigns and other alternatives. So think about how can you form that meaningful connection with your donors. Donors want to feel like they're doing something. Make supporting your work challenging but fun as well. Because if it's too easy and if they don't feel like they don't get that sense of achievement from donating, they may donate once, they may donate twice, but they may not return to you after. So think about this, doing like help them feel that as if they're doing something and they're making a contribution that is fun as well. Because sometimes when you talk about, some of us are working on very, very serious causes. So making fundraising and giving fun is hard, but that's quite important for it to sustain. Everyone wants to feel special. Segment your communication to supporters to help supporters sort of feel important. And this is really, again, a generic message going out to all donors. People can easily see that, okay, this is a generic message. If I have donated to a very, very specific campaign, but you're telling me what the rest of the organization does, I know I'm somewhere as a donor lost in your organization, and my contribution may be valuable, but I can't see that connection then. So it's really important to segment the communication that you send out to your donors, and send targeted messages, targeted thank you notes, targeted reports. And I would say along these lines, there are a lot of online giving platforms that give you that opportunity, but also it may take a little extra effort and planning your communications and not just reacting. Show gratitude. Why do donors stop giving? Because sometimes they feel they're not appreciated. They are 20, £25 is lost in this big budget, and they just don't see they don't feel appreciated, and they say, I might as well give to another charity who needs my money more or who appreciates the money more. So always remember to thank your donors and go beyond that just one thank you note. 50% of donors prefer personalization versus speed when they are being thanked by the organization to which they gave. Pay attention to what they gave to, if they have given before, and ask them why they gave. So again, one of the exercises that one of our project leaders ran, I think 2 years ago, was they asked feedback from their donors of what made them give, what actually put them off if they stop giving. And the response rate wasn't that high, but the inputs they got from the limited number of people was incredibly useful for that organization to change the way they interacted with the donors, and has resulted in better results of their fundraising campaigns as well. And in this, engage with your new and old network of supporters. Don't forget people who have stopped giving to your organization. If, of course, they have asked you not to contact them, don't contact them. But if they've just fallen off the radar, then think of ways to re-engaging some of your old supporters. But personalization is key. The next thing that often charities find difficult is showing, and this is where, again, forming that donor connection is important. And what helps is show them your impact. One of the top reasons donors stop giving is because they forget what they gave to and what did that mean. And they may remember, okay, I supported school books for X number of school students, but what did that help that particular organization achieve? That's really important. And also, it may be that the results of what they give happen after 6 months. So it's important that you thank them at the time, but also after 6 months, remind them of what their contribution and the impact has helped you achieve. Don't let donors forget about you. Keep them updated on how they have helped. Use your stories to remind your donors of the impact they have helped your organization create. This can inspire them to give again, making new donate inspire them to give again, making new donors into repeat donors. But they will also tell their friends, they will also tell their networks about your organization. And again, this could be via email, this could be via the other social media platforms that your organization is present on. Make them part of your team. Engage your supporters who believe in your work by turning them into fundraising advocates. And this is something, even within the chat room, one of the participants right now was sharing. That's how to, how to help people tell your story to other people. And I'm just sorry. So it's really the fundraising advocates is something. Building these fundraising advocates is really important. I'm going to come back to the fundraising advocates after this slide because there are a couple of do's and don'ts of this giving mindset as well. Asking supporters for time first may lead to larger gifts down the line. Again, as I was saying that if you're meeting somebody for the first time or making that phone call to say please give our charity money, it's going to have very low return on investment possibly. So engaging them, and then sometimes you may not even need to make that ask, or after you've engaged them, automatically the conversation comes down to, can you please donate? So asking your supporters for the first time, engage them first and then lead to something bigger later. Focus on constituents' feeling versus imagine how you feel if this person or if this person was even for example, if you're talking about refugees, trying to imagine something is harder than if you actually give them an example of your constituent, give them a quote or a testimonial from your constituent when telling the story. It's really important to highlight individual narratives because again, this comes or sort of links to the don't, which is don't ever, overemphasize on the scale and the statistical analysis because what makes people give is really the individual narratives. Make those personal connections. One of the principles that we at Global Giving follow is, and this comes under don'ts and this is a recommendation from us as well as the source from where we have pulled these out as well, is don't use photographs that portray your constituents in distressing situations. We know that there are a lot of charities who do this and who are able to raise money from it. But from the ethics point of view, but also from the point of view of why a donor gives, they want to see the change and not the problem. They want to see the solution and not so much the problem. And from the ethical standpoint, it's also, we must respect people who we work for and work with. And these are some of the basic do's and don'ts, I would say. Going back to the topic of fundraising advocates are supporters who become part of your fundraising team. They build trust in your organization from their network. They build trust in your organization from their networks, bring in new supporters, and act as your brand ambassadors. Fundraising advocates are part of your fundraising team and help you expand your network and reach your goals. One, they have a large network of friends, family, etc. They're passionate and positive about your cause and interested in your work. They know your story and can act as a brand ambassador. They're comfortable. You are comfortable asking them to help with your efforts, and they have the time and willingness to work. And these are really people you already know. Again, going back to mapping the network, these advocates could be everywhere and could be donating their time currently, and they may be your colleagues. It could just immediately when you think of people who can talk on your behalf, there will be quite a few people that you can think of. And it's also important to remember 1/3 of online donations come from peer-to-peer campaigns. Donors give where they trust. How to create fundraising advocates? Again, this is something I just touched upon here, which is map your current and potential network of supporters. Engage your key supporters to become fundraising advocates. give them tools to succeed. Don't just, again, this is a very, very important point, that you can't just expect fundraising advocates to go and speak on your behalf, but you really need to support them. Sometimes have a small training session of how can they present your work. And in this training session, you can help them interact with some of your constituents if it's appropriate. You can share some of their stories that they can use in their conversations with people. So you need to provide them with these tools, and most important, show appreciation, because they are really people who are not asked, I mean, doing this because they care and they're passionate about the work you do. And they're really going to be the best people to spread the message about the work you do as well. Some of the advocate tools could be the email templates, one-on-one check-ins, talking points, individual goals, sample sort of social media posts and outreach, talking points, and call to actions. So these specific leads will help them and direct them in the direction you want them to go in. Celebrate your advocates. Always thank and acknowledge your fundraising advocates. This is really, really important, and I cannot stress enough on this point. And that brings us to the last bit, which is to strengthen your brand. This is one of Elizabeth is one of the senior writers at Madison Avenue Collective, and she shared her experience in one of our online fundraising academy sessions, where she said, nonprofits exist to make an impact, and branding can help you deepen the impact you make, clarifying your goals, translating your mission into a powerful story, and bringing your entire organization into alignment. This is a much broader exercise, but this can definitely help in your digital fundraising campaigns as well. And when we think about that, your brand includes, and but is not limited to, your website, your Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. If you're on Global Giving, then Global Giving project page or a similar platform, your email communications, or any sort of collateral that you develop as well. So these are also opportunities where you can tell your story without an ask, but also Facebook platform and the social media is where you can make an ask as well. It's also very important, and it's part of branding, but also making it clear to your fundraising advocates of what sort of donation options do you have. And this is one example of one of our projects that's there on Global Giving, and there's a link where they have broken it down on what amounts can contribute to what. And this is quite important because it helps donors and your advocates to understand where the money is being used and how it will be used, where, what does my $20 or my £20 contribute towards. So in summary, to acquire and retain donors, I would just say, know your supporters and provide them with value, create a giving mindset, and strengthen your brand. And remember that this is an ongoing exercise that you have to continuously invest time and efforts in. And sometimes if you have the money as well.